He didn't fit my image of a police detective at all. He wasn't big or imposing, and he sweated profusely. Every time I saw him, he had a bag of corn chips in his hand, which he ate one by one. He wasn't unfriendly or intimidating, but it was difficult to strike up a conversation with him. "Mr. Frum, we can't release you until tomorrow morning. There's no one here on Sunday evening who can process your paperwork." Samuel Green tried to be both professional and friendly. It didn't work. I'd been sitting in a cell for 3 days, and now he was telling me I had to stay another night. The whole thing was a confusing mess. I shouldn't have been there in the first place. They probably really wanted someone to charge with murder. Unfortunately, I didn't fit the bill. All I could do was stare at him across the table and shrug. Hell, I didn't want to leave anyway. I was disappointed when they told me I wasn't going to be charged. Those bastards were sending me home, back to my wife and family. Back. No bail, no return. I felt like an old soda bottle. "The good news is that you can order dinner at Stakeout tonight. The money will come out of a different fund. You can order whatever you want." I smiled weakly at him. "Sam, will you be here in the morning?" "Sure. Why?" "Well, I was hoping you could help me a little with this release." "What do you mean?" "Well, I'll be completely free, right?" "Yes, no strings attached." "Is there any way you could let me go without turning me into my family?" When Sam Green laughed, beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. "You mean you want to escape through the back door?" I nodded, and he shook his head. "She really hurt you, didn't she?" I nodded again. "Here's what I'll do, John. You decide what you want, and I'll find a way to help you get it. Deal?" That evening, I ate chicken and was the envy of all the other guests. After I finished my apple pie, I spent the rest of the evening going over everything that had happened and trying to plan my future. Going over the events seemed like a good idea, but I had no idea what my plans would be. I worked at the Northeast Regional Distribution Center for Ace Hardware. All day long, I loaded and unloaded trucks. The work wasn't difficult, but I liked it, and the pay was decent. With that money, I fed my family and raised 2 wonderful boys. Todd was 16 and Jeremy was a year younger. My marriage and life were wonderful until 3 days ago when I was arrested. The arrest went fairly smoothly and without complications, but when I learned the circumstances of the arrest, things got more complicated. In fact, I complicated things myself. However, at the time, I had no such intention. I was in the warehouse doing my usual work at the usual time when the police arrived. My boss pointed me out, and I was immediately handcuffed and led to a black and white car. All this happened in front of my colleagues. By the time I reached the patrol car, everyone in the building knew what was going on. Of course, I had no idea. Being a law-abiding citizen, I followed orders like a little puppy and didn't ask any questions. That was when I first met Sam Green. At first, he was a little stern, but overall, he was serious. By the end of the day, his behavior began to change. We went through a few minutes of formal questioning before things got interesting. Sam Green was very interested in where I had been all morning. He didn't look too happy when I assured him that 15 people could confirm that I hadn't left the warehouse. I tried to be polite and cooperative until he dropped a bombshell on me. "Do you know a man named Thomas Esterly?" "He's not a friend, but I know him. Why?" "He was killed this morning at 11 o'clock in the parking lot of the Holiday Inn. His car exploded." Why am I being questioned about what happened to Thomas Esterly? I haven't seen that man in over 15 years. "What was your relationship with Mr. Esterly?" "None. He was an old friend of my wife's before I met her. I met him a few times, but never in an informal setting." "What was the relationship between Mr. Esterly and your wife?" "Detective Green, you're starting to annoy me. Laura and Tom Esterly were a couple for several years. I met her about 6 months after they broke up. I never asked her about her relationship with him. I suggest you talk to her." "We've already talked to her, Mr. Fromat. We spoke to her for 2 hours today." "Why?" "Your wife was with Mr. Esterly shortly before he was murdered. She was at the scene of the crime when we arrived. Suddenly, I didn't like the turn the conversation was taking. I had a good marriage. My life was perfect. Laura never gave me any reason to think otherwise. Of course, it could have been my fault because I wasn't looking for anything. It was because I never suspected anything. Tick-tock, tick-tock. My brain finally kicked in, and I didn't like the conclusions I came to. When I didn't answer, he spoke again. Security cameras at the Holiday Inn recorded Mr. Esterly and your wife entering room 311 at 9:45 and leaving at 12:30. Your wife returned to her car, and Mr. Esterly returned to his. When Mr. Esterly tried to start his Mercedes, it exploded. Your wife was far enough away not to be hurt. Can I have a cup of coffee? He seemed a little annoyed by my request. I had broken his concentration. I needed a short break to clear my head. I had just learned that my wife, with whom I had lived for 18 years, had been cheating on me. My whole life had been built around her and the children I had with her. Everything was falling apart. No, I hadn't killed Thomas Esterly, but I would very much like to have done so. The rest of his questions would have been superfluous. Sam Green left the room for a moment and returned with cups of black coffee from the vending machine. The coffee was terrible, but I needed time to think, so I sipped it slowly. Detective Green, I assume my wife confirmed all this information, or did she have some other explanation? No, Mr. Fromut. There is no other explanation. We showed her the evidence, and she confirmed everything. She had been seeing Mr. Esterly, and they did spend more than 2 hours together in room 311. I know this isn't your job, but was this their first meeting, or had they been together before? Mrs. Fromut indicated that she and Mr. Esterly had been meeting monthly for at least 3 years. She had no idea who would want Mr. Esterly dead. Of course, you understand why you are our prime suspect? I finished my coffee in one gulp. My body seemed to tremble from its bitterness. At that moment, it matched my mood. Why did she admit all this? To be honest, I think she was scared to death. It seems they usually came in the same car. Today she had some shopping to do, so she decided to meet him there. If they had done what they usually did, your wife would be dead too. I think she knew that. Well, I guess I'd better tell you everything so you can close this case. What do you mean? It was me. I parked my truck behind the warehouse and got out so no one would see me. I put the bomb under Esterly's car, then went back to work. I was gone for at least 30 minutes, so no one even noticed I was gone. Are you willing to sign a statement confirming this? Of course. An hour later, I found myself in a solitary cell. Most of the other inmates had to share cells, but murderers were given rooms to themselves. So why did I do something so stupid? It was very simple. I was a quiet guy, but I was proud. It was important to me what I thought of myself. Of course, that meant it was also important to me what others thought of me. This situation changed everything in an instant. Now it was obvious to me that my wife didn't respect me very much. I believed Detective Green when he said that Laura had been on Thomas Esterly's side for 3 years. Not because I had any information, but simply because she would never make something like that up. And neither would he. Not only did I not want to live with her anymore, I didn't even want to see her. I was sure she would have a logical explanation for everything, but I didn't want to hear it. The best way to avoid her was to go to prison. I had always had an excellent relationship with my 2 sons. I had never done anything that would disgrace them or make them feel that I was a bad father. At that moment, I didn't feel like a good father. I was a cuckold. My wife, their mother, had openly admitted that she had slept with another man. That information would inevitably reach them. I realized that after this, I would not be able to look at my sons and hold my head high. She humiliated me in front of my boys. She stripped me of my masculinity in front of my children. How could I look them in the eye without feeling like I had let them down? The best way out of the situation was to tell the whole world that when I found out what was going on, I took steps to put an end to it. I killed the son of a bitch who destroyed my marriage. That way, my sons could at least be proud of how their father handled the situation, In fact, I would have liked to do that. But better this way than nothing if I at least get credit for it. In any case, I didn't want to see my sons the way I saw my wife. I couldn't go back to work. I played cards and bowled with all those guys. If they found out that my wife had been cheating on me for 3 years, I would never have been able to live with myself. The shame I would have had to bear would have been unbearable. That's why I couldn't go back to Ace Hardware. The situation with my family would have remained the same. I didn't want to face any of them. I couldn't find an explanation for Laura's actions that didn't make me look weak. My only hope was to go to prison and forget about all of them. The plan was to avoid trial by agreeing to a plea bargain. In movies and on TV, they always offer a deal to save on the costs and hassle of a trial. Now all I had to do was wait for the charges to be filed. I didn't care what happened to me, but I didn't want to stand in front of a bunch of people I knew and look like a cuckolded loser. One of the best things about being in jail was that I could turn down visitors. They kind of made me talk to my public defender, but I refused to see my wife and my brother Will. Other than my lawyer, I spent most of Friday alone. I was given a newspaper, and it had all the details of Thomas Esterly's death. I was named as the alleged killer, and Laura was clearly identified as a prostitute from the Holiday Inn. My sons must be very proud of me. It seems that Esterly had made a small fortune in real estate and married well. Sam Green came in after dinner. "John, I have one quick question, and then I'll let you go. Where did you get the black powder you used to make the bomb?" "There was a gun show at the Lancaster Fair this summer. I bought 2 cans there, but I didn't keep the receipts." As soon as I answered, I knew something was wrong. He came out of the room with a big smile on his face. "I'm not sure, but I thought he winked at me. I thought my answer was pretty good because the boys and I had actually been to that gun show. Saturday started slowly. After lunch, 2 guys from the Washington Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms showed up. I didn't like them, and I refused to talk to them without a lawyer present. It was a holiday, and they couldn't find my public defender anywhere. They left after a few hours, but they didn't seem too upset. The rest of the day passed without incident, except for a very brief visit from Sam Green. He just stopped by to ask if I was okay. I nodded, he smiled again, and left. On Sunday afternoon, Sam returned, and we spent a few pleasant hours together. And then it all came crashing down. "John, it took us a few days, but we finally put all the pieces of the puzzle together. I didn't like how you tried to mislead us, but I understand why you did it." I sat silently, waiting for him to say something else. "The guys at the ATF were able to find out everything about the bomb that killed Thomas Esterly. They even identified the man who probably made the bomb, and they were right. It was C4, John, not black powder. Last night, they arrested a professional bomber who made the bomb. His name is Frank Donato, and he was arrested in Philadelphia. Phone records show that over the past few weeks, he contacted Sylvia Esterly, Tom's wife, 13 times. Last Wednesday, Sylvia Estelle withdrew $25,000 from her bank account. She refused to say what she spent the money on. Well, that pretty much buried my plan." I sat and listened for the next hour as Sam Green recounted everything that had happened. Laura would have been collateral damage. Sylvia Estelle would have been just as happy if Laura had been in the car with her husband. And then it was over. I waited for Monday to be sent back. No bail, no return. That damn phrase echoed in my head like an Amy Winehouse song. A prison sentence would have left me with a shred of dignity. Now I had nothing. I was being released to a fickle wife, 2 sons who I was sure had lost all respect for me, and a job I was ashamed to return to. I couldn't look my family and friends in the eye anymore. The saddest part was that I had nothing to do with it. I was a victim. No bail, no return. What did that even mean? Sam was a man of his word. As I was checking out, I saw Laura, Todd, and Jeremy in the lobby. Sam took me aside, and we went out through the garage entrance. He waited for the banks to open so I could withdraw some cash. I left everything I had in my account but took the $22,000 we had been saving for a new house. My new detective friend drove me to Ace Warehouse so I could pick up my truck. Sam and I shook hands. I had my truck and a few dollars. I decided there was nothing left in the house I couldn't live without. He went back to my wife and kids, and I headed south on the highway. My first stop was Knoxville. After a good dinner and a cold beer, I turned on my cell phone. I had 13 messages from Laura, which I deleted, and then I called Todd. "Dad, is that you? Where the hell are you?" "I'm fine. Are you alone? Can you talk?" "Yes. Mom's in the bedroom. She's been there all day. Jeremy's here with me." "I'm sorry, son. But after what happened, I just couldn't bring myself to go home. I feel terrible leaving you, but you're both grown-ups, and I think you can handle it." "We're fine, Dad. Mom's in a terrible state, but no one, including us, is showing her much sympathy. You'll have to take care of yourselves for a couple of years. I'll send you money as soon as I can." We talked for a few more minutes. Things with my sons weren't as bad as I had thought. They seemed to be on my side, even though I had left. That night, I slept better than I had expected. By noon the next day, I was in Huntsville. I rented a small mobile home, and the next day got a job at a warehouse through a temp agency. By the end of the following week, I was offered a permanent position. I was overqualified and underpaid, but the job seemed stable, and the prospects for the future were good. I started making arrangements to send money home to the boys. Everything came to a halt when Todd called. Todd and Jeremy had left home and were now living with my parents. Jeremy and Laura had gotten into a fight, and Jeremy ended up getting slapped several times by his mother. He defended himself but didn't hit her back. Todd very carefully explained that Laura wasn't to blame. Laura tried to convince the boys that her actions were somehow justified. Todd tried his best to hold back his anger, but Jeremy exploded. It seemed like he unleashed every curse word I had ever wanted to say on his mother. Finally, he got to the point where Laura couldn't take it anymore. In a fit of rage, Laura yelled that they should leave with their weak-willed father. The next morning, Todd and Jeremy left. 2 days later, my father arrived in Huntsville with my 2 sons. I had no problem trading my small rental house for a more spacious one. My father stayed for a couple of days and then went home. Todd was smart enough to take their school records with him before he left, so there were no problems enrolling them in the local school. The biggest challenge was deciding what kind of car to buy. I think Todd won because Jeremy didn't have his license yet. We never heard from Laura again. She didn't contact my parents either. Over the next year, I got 2 raises. We moved out of the trailer and into a small rented house. Todd had a girlfriend and a part-time job. Jeremy got his license and bought a car, which sat on jack stands in the yard. We shared the household chores, but cooking was my job. I was at work when I received the divorce papers. I never got an explanation or an apology. I didn't need one. I would love to tell you what happened to Laura, but I can't. She disappeared from my life, and I have no intention of bringing her back. I'm sure she's sitting somewhere in a comfortable armchair or on a bar stool, glad to be rid of me. That thought alone makes me smile. I'm sorry, Laura. You lost. No deposit, no refund.